Good morning, dear students. This is Dr. Savita Tidme, and we are studying the subject Animal Ecology, under which we have already started chapter 5th, that is Animal Interaction, and we spent 2 lectures for studying the concept of animal interaction, as well as it is also called as animal association. And what is the animal association? Animal association is nothing but when two or more animals belong to same species or different species live together, right? Or share a particular habitat, they interact with one another in a specific way for the purpose of food or for the purpose of shelter, for the mate, anything else. So such a kind of interaction is called as a animal interaction or animal association. And it's a different types, that is commensalism, mutualism. We have already studied yesterday, right? During the last lecture. And in the second lecture, we have studied the commensalism, and commensalism is a kind of animal association in which one member is definitely at the benefit and another member is not at benefit, not at harm. And the example, very popular example, suckerfish, that is remora fish, and the shark, we have studied in detail. And cattle egret, that is heron and the cattles. It is not only the cattle egret or the heron is the only organism or the bird which is living in mutual, or you can say commensal with the cattle, but many other birds, many other small birds, they are also found to be living as an associate or living with the association with the cattle, and they are also called as a cattle egrets, right? So they're getting food from the cattle, that is insects which are grazing on the cattle while feeding on the ground, and these insects were later on eaten by the cattle egrets. So ultimately the cattle egret is benefited. The cattle, they may be or may not be benefited. Okay. Because those insects, if remain on the body of a cattle, doesn't harm to the cattle, because these insects were means living on the grasses, so that doesn't matter. So cattle is not at harm, not at benefit. So commensalism type of association it is. So these are the things which we have studied in our previous 2 lectures of the chapter 5th, that is animal interaction. Now in the present lecture, what will we are going to study? Let's see. Mutualism. In the present lecture especially, we'll be studying the mutualism. Now what is the mutualism? Mutualism, when two species live together in a close association, that is, here now the species means what? Is not the inter, means not the same species, intra, no. It is inter-specific association, right? When two species, means two different species, live together in a close association that is helpful to both the species. The relationship is known as a mutualism. It is symbiotic interaction where both or all individuals involved in the association are benefited from the relationship. Now, one very popular example is quoted here, that is bees and the flowers, right? So, mutualism is a kind of association in which all the members or both the members of the association are at benefit. No one is at harm, or no one is at the neutral relationship, right? So it is called as a mutualism. The one popular example is bees and flowers. Everybody knows that. Honey bees, they visited to beautifully colored flowers for getting the nectar. Everybody knows that. And why they do need nectar? They need nectars for the preparation of honey. And the honey is very delicious and sweet in taste. Everybody have tasted it, right? So for that preparation of the honey, these honeybees, they require some nectar. And who will give them nectar? The flowers, right? The flowers, the honeybees visited to flowers, and from the base of the ovary, they used to collect the nectar. They used to suck the nectar. While visiting to flowers, what happened? The honeybees, they also collect the pollen grains. Pollen grains, what are the pollen grains? These are, means anther carries the pollen grains, and these pollen grains are nothing but the male gametes. And these honeybees, they used to, when suck the nectar from the bottom of the flower, they used to, means their entire body is get covered with the pollen grains. The body hairs, they get pollen grains attached with the pollen grains, as well as the pollen grains are also being collected by the honeybees in their pollen basket, which is located on the last leg, right? Last leg, that is hind leg, or it is also called as a pollen basket. And it is again a separate mechanism. But what important thing is here, the thing is that the honeybees, they collect nectar from the flowers, as well as they also collect the pollen grains. Now this is what the benefit received by the one of the member, that is honeybee, from this kind of association. Now one may ask the question, how the flowers, they are at benefit? Yes, okay. The flowers, especially those flowers are not able to are not able to fertilize by themselves. Self-fertilization is not there in most of the flowers, and these flowers are specially said to be specially depend on the cross-pollination for fertilization, right? And who will bring about the cross-pollination? Insects like the honey bees. If you see the entire body of a honeybee, it is been covered with a small hairs, bristles are there all over the body, right? And when it visited to flowers, the anthers, they get pollen grains, especially they get attached with the body hairs. And when such a same honeybee visited to another flower for getting the nectar, the pollen grains are shed on the ovary, means as it inserts its mouth part at the base of the ovary. So ultimately, whatever pollen grains which are attached with the head portion, mouth part portion, will get directly deposited to the ovary. So there is a chance that when a field is visited by, if a field is visited by the honeybees, then it can carry out 100% pollination of that particular field. So because of the 100% pollination, ultimately the yield of such a field is obviously increases, right? And hence the flowers, they are also benefited because they get easily pollinated. Cross-pollination is being facilitated by the honeybees. So flowers, they are benefited, and the insect, means a honeybee, is also benefited by getting the nectar and the pollen grains. So in this association, these two members, flowers and the bees, they are benefited mutually or equally. So the association is called as a mutualism. Let's move ahead and see one more example of the mutualism. Termites and trichonympha. These are nothing but the wood-eating termites, and the trichonympha, it is nothing but a protozoan flagellate that lives in the hind gut of the termites. Okay, so this trichonympha is a bell-shaped single-celled anaerobic flagellate. Okay, though it is found to be, or though it is shown as a big or in size like the termite, but it is not actually. It is a very, very small, minute, microscopic flagellate, unicellular. A single cell is there. The body is composed of a single cell. Okay, and such a small, very minute single cellular flagellate, that is protozoan organism, is found exclusively. It is found to be present into the hindgut of the termite, right? And this trichonympha, that is a protozoan flagellate, helps termite to digest the cellulose. So, and in return, termites provide them the constant supply of food and shelter. So this trichonympha also has a variety of bacterial symbiote that are involved in sugar metabolism and nitrogen fixation. Alright. Okay, so this termite, wood-eating termite, if flagellates are not found to be present inside their body, then what will happen? These termites, though they feed on the wood, so the wood, when it enter in their gut or alimentary canal, and if flagellate protozoans are not there, then what happened? This termite will die. Why? Because of the starvation. Why? Because of starvation, termites will die. As the termites, they are feeding on the wood, which is their natural source of, natural food, right? But still, why they get die off in absence of the flagellate protozoan? Because the termite, they don't have ability to synthesize the enzyme cellulase which digests cellulose, and wood is absolutely the cellulose, right? So they are unable to themselves, they are unable to digest the cellulose or wood. So ultimately, whatever, though they are eating, but constipation is there, we can say. The food is not able to digest by the termite, and for that purpose, they need to be depend on the Trichonympha or flagellate protozoan. What it does, it used to secrete the cellulase enzyme which bring about digestion of the cellulose, right? And so ultimately from that cellulose, glucose or you can say energy is been released, and that energy is utilized by the termite. So in this kind of association, termites, they get digestion, right, from the, or you can say enzymes, digestive enzyme from the Trichonympha, that is a flagellate protozoan. So termite is at benefit, right? And the flagellate, they are, as they remain inside the gut of the termite, so they get protection as well as ready-made food in the body of a termite. So in this association, both this one, termites and the flagellate Trichonympha, both are benefited mutually. So this kind of association is said to be the mutualism. My dear students, let me tell you, there was a one experiment done whether this Trichonympha is as much useful to the termite or not. So what scientist they does, they gives the termite a specific kind of medicine, or you can say drugs, that can kill all the protozoan of the termite, right? All the protozoan from the body of a termite. So ultimately this protozoan, that is Trichonympha, was also get killed. So now the termite is free of the protozoan, and now this termite allowed to feed on the cellulose. When it fed on the cellulose, though it ate a lot, but still that termite was not able to digest the food, and most of them, they were died because of the indigestion as well as because of the starvation. Though the food is available, but it has not been digested, so there is no energy produced from such a food, so it is of no use. So termite were dying. Now after a few days, what scientists they does, they used to introduce this flagellate protozoan into the body of a termite once again and observe the activity. So this termite, when they were introduced with the flagellate protozoan in their body, the termite shows their normal activity. They were able to digest the cellulose and shows a normal activity. So on the basis of that, it is said for the life of this termite, flagellate protozoans are important, and flagellate protozoans, as they are living inside the gut of the termite, so they get protection as well as food. Now after that, it is also said that Trichonympha has a variety of bacterial symbiotes that are involved in sugar metabolism and nitrogen fixation. It also lives along with some bacteria which help it to metabolize a sugar as well as a fixation of a nitrogen. So various kinds of symbiotic relationships or mutualism is being observed in varieties of animals. This is one of the example. Okay, so the cleaning symbiosis is observed in the goby fish and the shrimp. Here is the image of the goby fish and the shrimp which is cleaning the fish. Now it is again a natural mutualism, natural kind of association seen in the aquatic animals. So cleaning symbiosis is occur in individuals of two species, where one species acting as a cleaner by eradicating and feeding on the parasites of the other. So what here, who is acting as a cleaner? This shrimp, as it is feeding on the parasites and the whatever material is present inside the gills as well as inside or between the limbs, or you can say gills. So this parasite, this cleaner is going to clean it up and feed on it, right? So one species acting as a cleaner, like the shrimp, by eradicating and feeding on the parasites of the other species. This is well known in marine organisms like the shrimp and goby cleans the fish, acting as a cleaner and receiving a nourishment when they remove the parasite dead tissues as well as a mucus from the different host. So whatever dead part is there, it has been removed by the cleaner, that is the shrimp, as well as whatever ectoparasites are found to be present or attached to the gills or body surface or fins of the fish. It is also being cleaned and eaten by the shrimp. So ultimately shrimp is getting food from the fish, right? Shrimp is getting food from the goby fish, and this goby fish is ultimately get cleaned. It get free from the ectoparasite, it get free from the parasitic animal which are found to be supposed to be stick to its body. So in this association again both the partners they are benefited. This one shrimp is also benefited because it gets the food, and the fish is also benefited because it get cleaned as well as get free from the ectoparasite as well as many other things or dead material whatever is there, it is get clean. So both the partners are benefited, hence it is example of a mutualism. Now let's move ahead and see the antagonistic association. Okay, mutualism we have started with the two examples, termite and trichonympha, as well as a goby fish and the shrimp. Okay, now we are moving towards the antagonistic association, means opposite type of association, means what one member is benefited and another one member is at harm. So opposite kind of interaction, it is also called as a negative interaction, right? So certain interactions between the different species give rise to negative effect on either or both the species. What it means, certain interaction between different species obviously give rise to a negative effect on either species, either one species, or negative effect on both the species. So parasitism and predations are the interaction where one species gains and the other is a sufferer, right? So parasitism is also kind of antagonistic interaction in which one, that is a parasite, is benefited and the host is at harm. Predation is also kind of an antagonistic or negative interaction in which the predator is benefited and the prey is at harm because it is losing its life. So obviously it is at harm. Okay, so antagonistic interaction, parasitism and predation. While in interaction called as a competition, both the species are at harm, right? Okay. Now, parasitism. What is a parasitism? In a parasitism, two species have a long-lasting close interaction. What is important? Long-lasting close interaction. Long-lasting interaction is important. So, when two species have a long-lasting close interaction, that is beneficial to one, especially the parasite, and harmful to other, that is the host. Now, it is a relationship in which one organism, that is the parasite, spend much or all of its life living in or on the other organism that is called as a host. So the parasite is depend upon the host for food, obviously, as well as sometimes for the shelter. The parasite benefit from the relationship, and because it is getting the food and shelter, and the host is always harmed because the host is losing nourishment, host is suffer from diseases caused by the parasite. So parasites may brings about the death of their host, but most often only weaken their host, right? So the parasite may cause death of their host. What happened, my dear students, sometime whenever some kind of a parasitic infection, if increases in the body, if increases than the normal level, then the person suffer from diseases. right? Persons suffer from diseases. And if it is not been treated and the population or number of parasites goes on increasing day by day, so ultimately the person that is a patient is going to die because of excessive parasitic load in its body, right? So sometimes the parasitism may cause death of their host, but this is obviously avoided. This is usually avoided by the parasite. And what happens normally? The number of parasite, if it is increased in the body of a host, the parasite causes or there is a negative effect on their host by showing some kind of symptom like temperature is there, body ache is there, pain is there, or maybe the weakness is there. Okay, because the death of the host is directly the death of parasite, right? So parasite is obviously trying to avoid hyperinfestation to the host, okay, so that they cannot lose their life. So dear students, we have seen the concept of a parasitism, that is antagonistic type of association. It's two examples, that is Ascaris and human, as well as head louse and human. These two examples we're supposed to study, but one we'll study now and another one we'll study in the next lecture. Okay, so the example of a parasitism is Ascaris and human. Here I have shown the diagram of Ascaris, female and male. Okay, female and male. Now you may ask a question, why the female is big and why the male is small in size? Because in most, or you can say in all the invertebrates, the females, they are larger in size as compared to males. Males are smaller because they have to only fertilize the female. Only the function is given to them. And what the female does, female has to produce a lot of numerous hundred or thousands of eggs, so that a huge number of offsprings can produce, and out of the huge hundred or thousands of the offsprings, only at least few can survive. So as to do that function, so as to prove it, the females, their body size is more, they have more fat deposit in it, they have very well developed reproductive structures, that is reproductive organs, especially like the ovaries and all, right? And hence the females, they are larger as compared to males. Alright, so Ascaris and human. Ascaris lumbricoid, commonly known as a roundworm, right? Because it is not flattened anywhere. So roundworm acting as an endoparasite. Endo means what? Inside the body of a human, living in a small intestine of a human. So acting as an endoparasite of the man, right? So Ascaris acting as a parasite which gets the protection and digested food present in the intestine. As it is living into the small intestine, it gets readily digested. What comes in the intestine? Partially digested food material comes in the intestine, right? And that partially digested food material is further digested completely in the further part of the intestine, right? Proteinous digestion has been carried out in there. So in this case, that digested food material, when it comes in the small intestine, where this individual is there, parasite is present, so it, through the body surface, it used to absorb digested food material, so it contribute to your nourishment, it contribute to your nutrition, right? As well as reproduce within the intestine only, reproduce within the intestine, right? And what happened, it used to release eggs into the alimentary canal, and the eggs of Ascaris, which are small encapsulated eggs, are there, which passes along with the fecal matter, feces of the human or person, and it is being thrown outside or defecated outside along with the fecal matter on the open land, suppose, and then the soil where it is being deposited is acting as a source for infection, right? When a person is moving through that area and suppose by any means it comes in contact with such a soil where it has the developmental stages of the this one Ascaris, right? Then what will happen if it touches to the soil, and then the embryo may get transferred to the human hands, and if not washed properly, hands are not washed properly, it may get into the alimentary canal, so person receives the infection. This is one way. Another way, if the eggs, they pass along with the water into a water body, and when it comes, human drinks such a water, infected water, may receive the infection. Or sometimes what happen, if a person or if vegetables are grown on such a land, and then the larvae of this roundworm get transferred on the leaves, and if the vegetables, they are not properly washed, not properly cooked, can act as a source of infection. So my dear students, Ascaris is the one organism or endoparasite which is always benefited, right? Always benefited, because it is getting food, it is getting shelter inside the small intestine of the human, so it is benefited. But human, rather than that, human who is acting as a host, now human has to contribute for the nourishment. It is means whatever nourishment is there, partly it is absorbed by the parasite, so human will get the less nourishment, less nutrition, right? As well as when it attached with the host skin, it is very painful. It causes a cramps in the stomach, a lot of cramps, lot of pain is there in the stomach. So human is again human is again at the harm, because it causes pain to the host. When it detached from the one area and get attached to another one, the area where it get detached leaves the open wound through which hemorrhage, that is the loss of blood takes place, loss of mucus is there, right? And when it attached to the another surface, intestinal surface, it causes again a severe pain, right? So human, that is a host, is always at the harm when the Ascaris endoparasite is present in it. So this association is said to be the parasitic association, right? Okay, my dear students, and the next one association, means the next example of the parasitic association, that is head louse and human, we will see in the next lecture.